everyone's thinking, are we in the middle of a large AI bubble that may pop like the dot-com bubble? They've committed to spend trillions of dollars, even though they don't have any of that money. If we threw 10K into Microsoft the day that ChatGPT came out, what would it be worth today?
AI is the only thing propping up the economy.
A lot of people talk about this question, which is, will there be one AI model that will rule them
Welcome
all?
to the Hevi AI Podcast, where the future's forged in iron and code.
Hello and welcome to the Hevi AI Podcast, the podcast where we explore the intersection of technology, AI, and industry. I'm Paul, he's Brad, and together we've built Hevi, an AI-powered contract administration platform. Brad, we'll try and keep it nice and short and sweet this week. I think when we first started, we were like, 15, 20, and then there's just been so much to talk about recently. We've just been waffling on a bit too long.
I think we just
even
get
though
too
there's still plenty
excited.
of news to cover off. Yeah, exactly. So many tools, so much news to talk about. We'll try and keep it a bit shorter and sweeter this week. So news.
of the week, changing life with every tweet. Tomorrow's here inside its peak. Tuned into AI news of the
So news. There's been some more models released. There seems to be that mad rush into Christmas. Like Claude 4.5 Opus is the latest one that's only come out in the last couple of days. We'll probably talk about that next week because Brad has yet to play with it. So we'll get jumped into that next week. But for today, for our news segment, let's talk about all things AI bubble going to pop. There's been a lot of news recently around all the trillions of dollars of investment that are going into building out data centers and buying chips and all this round tripping of NVIDIA's investing in OpenAI and OpenAI is just buying NVIDIA chips, or OpenAI is doing deals with Broadcom, AMD. Like they've committed to spend trillions of dollars, even though they don't have any of that money. And so everyone's thinking, are we in the middle of a large AI bubble that may pop like the dot-com bubble? Brad, what's your take on that?
Look, my take is that even though prices may be elevated for these stocks and things, I think it's going to be backed up. Like Nvidia stock, for example, the stock price, keeps going up, but it's been backed up by huge revenue increases as well. It's not just all speculation. There are people buying it. And then you have to go, okay, but is the eventual demand there, like from users actually wanting AI products? But the cloud providers who are selling those are still are making heaps of money as well. So ultimately, there's definitely some value being generated here. I think we see the long-term, a lot of that long-term value coming from even, not just the versions of AI we have now, but the next ones, and the next ones, and the next ones. It gets better and better and better. So I'd say things that are up now, maybe there's going to be some big ups and downs along the way, but ultimately, I definitely still think AI has a long way to go in terms of the value that it does create. So I think these valuations are probably justified in the medium term.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like there's so much hype around the hyperscalers. But yeah, as you say, there's those companies where the AI hype is, they've got underlying earnings. Like if it's Google and NVIDIA or Facebook and Meta, etc. They've all got revenue generating businesses and profitable businesses that they can then use that cash to invest in AI, etc. I guess there's likely to be lots of volatility and potential sort of popping of a bubble at some point where there'll be a pullback in all of the market pricing. But I think there's been so much growth and demand that it'll only reset to a place where it was, say, 6 to 12 months ago. That may be there's a massive pop of a bubble, but it's still going to be higher than where we were 12 months ago because the underlying business is still generating it's and still putting out products that people are buying and paying for. And I think the capacity and the eventual output of these models that are coming down the line like I'm very tech optimistic in that the way that the US gets out of its debt crisis and the way that the rest of the world gets out of its like impending debt crises for every single sort of central government is through productivity and through like increasing output. And I think the ultimate way of doing that is through using technology to do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's the only way. The only way they're
Well,
going to get out of this, I think. They have to grow
you
the
can't
way
do
out
it
of
by like
it.
exactly by like increasing demand of other stuff or goods or services and importing more people. Like there's migration crises happening
Mm.
around the world. It's like, well, that's not really driving much GDP growth. It's more sort of adding to the spending of the only way to sort of build our way out of it is to sort of grow out of it as well.
No, exactly. I guess some interesting things that I've heard, other news kind of along the way is that although it might not be a bubble, it's interesting to think who the winners and losers are going to be. And from the infrastructure, especially, I think
Yeah.
um, thinking back to like, when everyone's building out infrastructure for the internet, the people who spend all that money on laying cables in the ground and things like that, building all of that infrastructure out, there was heaps of money pumped into those companies that did it. They ended up not actually kind of being the real winners. The consumers ended up
Yeah.
being the winners out of it. Those companies actually didn't do as well. So like if you're if you're investing in them, then maybe you're not the winner. But overall, obviously that demand was still there at the end of the day, and that there was
Yeah.
still value created for society. So I think even if it's bubbly from a market point of view, from a world consumer, the people using it point of view, we're going to get a lot of value.
Yeah, I recall a conversation that we had quite quickly after ChatGPT was released, almost 3 years ago now. And it was essentially like, what do we invest in to like ride this wave? Like, what should we be putting tens of thousands of dollars in to like maximize returns, just stuff that's lying around? And I think both of us said, I guess we just buy Microsoft because they're the ones that are throwing money into OpenAI, the only ones that you can sort of buy in a public stock at the moment. And so, for last night for shits, I just was like, okay, if we threw 10K into Microsoft the day that ChatGPT came out, what would it be worth today? Have you got a guess for like what that would be?
Oh, is it like
Before I
double
reveal
or
the answer?
something?
Yeah, pretty much bang on. So
Yeah.
like, I was expecting it potentially to be more than that because like, it's like, very hype and etc. But like $10,000 invested in November 2022 would now be worth, like in Microsoft would now be worth circa $19,000 to $20,000.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, these tech stocks are they're the biggest stocks in the US stock market, and they're also growing the fastest, which is
Still growing,
crazy. So
yeah.
that they're becoming a much bigger and bigger piece of the pie. And I think what I heard even just yesterday in like Wall Street Journal or something was if you take out the AI fueled growth from the US economy, the US is actually in a recession. There's
Yeah.
just like,
100%.
or some economists say that. And it's like AI is the only thing propping up the economy. And so
Yeah.
like it's just responsible for just a huge amount of that growth for just being one industry.
Definitely. Okay, so moving on.
Keeps me running, keeps me sleek. It's my compass, my guide, my street. Out to the week.
Okay, so moving on to our AI tool of the week. And today let's talk all things image generation with Google's Nano Banana Pro. I guess, it's the best daily driver for image generation on my side. And some of the use cases that I use it for is, mocking up YouTube thumbnails for this podcast episode. Like I'll throw a prompt into it to design and mock up a thumbnail. I will do a bunch of stuff creatively with the kids to just like create funny images of anything. And then one of the other ones I've done recently is my wife is into styling and design of furniture and soft furnishings, etc. And so, like, taking a picture of a room throwing in a bunch of pillows, couches, beds, whatever art hanging on the wall, throw it all in there and just say, hey, generate me this room based on all of these inputs. And it does an amazing job.
Absolutely. We just made our Christmas card for this year in it.
Nice.
But I think one thing I'm curious to get your take on is Nano Banana Pro versus Nano Banana Not Pro.
Yep.
What differences do you see there?
I think the big one is text. Like text consistency in AI imagery has always been a battle. And I think 4.0 image gen sort of started getting that better. But there's always still been bugs and it's hard to edit stuff. But yeah, from what I've seen so far, the text inside the Pro version is quite amazing. So much to the point that I generated an infographic about Hevi today, and it was multi sort of slides of text that was a bunch of images around it that was perfect. And I think the other thing that it also has is and from what I've read about it, it will do some underlying research and deep thinking and more contextual analysis using tools prior to starting the image generation process. Even if you don't give it as much content, it will go out and do that analysis prior doing the image gen. So multi-pronged approach that it's ultimately delivering much better results.
Oh, that's awesome. And so you need to have Google Gemini paid subscription to access the Pro, right?
I think you can access it for free. So if you just go to Gemini, you'll get a couple of quotas and just hit the banana create image icon and have a play and throw in some crazy ass prompts and designs just to see what it can do and let your imagination run wild.
Answering your AI FAQs, the things I can and cannot do. Ask me once, ask me twice. I don't eat chips, but I'll give advice.
Cool. So let's FAQ this week. And sort of ties into a little bit about our bubble talk before. But a lot of people talk about this question, which is, will there be one AI model that will rule them all? Are we just going to have a overarching AGI model that is a Skynet style, just integrates into everything and just sucks in everything and just rules everything in the world? Are we headed in that direction, Bradley?
I think no, and I think remember that DeepSeek freak out that happened a few months ago almost proves why, because once someone has built a really good model, it's then super easy for someone else to kind of copy it afterwards. Whether that's the way that they trained it or even using it to generate data to train the other model. It's very easy to copy a model once it's been made. So I don't see a good moat for someone at the top to just have one model that's the best and have no one else out there doing other things. I think there'll always be, as soon as someone makes the best one, someone will very quickly catch up someone else.
And I think we're seeing that already. You see that it's always Grok 4.1 comes out, ChatGPT 5.1 comes out, Gemini 3, Claude 4.5. Everyone's just sort of every week or two, it's just step as they're all just building, releasing, 3 to 6 months cadence. So I think you're right in that the underlying technology, there's enough players on the field now that they're all going to catch up with each other forever. And I think the other part that sort of keeps me at ease is that the distribution of each of these models is quite different. So where you access the technology is through a bunch of different app layers, and ultimately those pipes are still going to exist, I think, for a little while. It's so there's always going to be a range of models, and then even
Google's always going to use Gemini as to power their Google search results, for example.
Yeah.
They're not going to switch to ChatGPT for that, or to GPT models for that.
Yeah. And I think the other one is that there are nuances and things that the underlying models are good or better at or worse at than each other. And so I think that will keep happening over time as well. So like everyone who is deeply in the space will have still their tools on their tool belt that, okay, I go to GPT to do this, I go to Gemini to do this, I go to Claude to do this. And so that's going to continue on, I think, even as the models improve exponentially over time.
Yeah, I think that they already are specialized to a degree, like you said. But the thing I wonder about is, will there be room for these like ultra specialist models in there? Because like every time people have trained them in the past, suddenly, the next big general model comes out that's better than the specialized ones at their specializations. So that's the thing I'm less sure about.
Yeah, I think there'll be a layer at some point that'll be wiped out where it's like a tweaked or a fine-tuned model that does X really well.
Mm-hmm.
The next one or two generations of that foundation model will probably wipe out those like niche wrappers that aren't that like vertical. It's just like a tweak in a prompt or some type of like user workflow piece. But yeah, I think ultimately we're just guessing here, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of years.
Exactly.
Hey, I'm at bustin', tearing it down. Every lie, every fear spun around. We're not the villains, not the crown. Hey, I'm myth bustin', true profound. True profound.
Cool. Let's bust a myth quickly, and then we'll wrap. So the myth today that we are busting is that every time you interact with any AI, it is constantly learning in real time for every interaction that you have. That's what people assume is happening. Like, oh, I'm talking to this intelligent human-like creature that is just constantly learning based on everything that I say, and so it's getting to know me and understanding me very well. And how does it actually work in the underlying technology, Brad?
Yeah, for different models, it works in different kind of app layers. I guess it works in different ways. Sometimes the model is actually learning from the stuff that you put in, but it's not happening in real time. So, for example, when you chat with ChatGPT, all the stuff that you put in there, it can train off, but it's not actually having that like be sucked into the underlying model until the next time it's trained, which every model release, like every 6 months or something. However, what you see when you go, oh, it remembers what happened in our last conversation, is when you've had that first conversation, it has taken some notes and written them down, and then it's providing those notes to the AI the next time that you read, and those are kind of being added to the prompt. And so in that way, I think ChatGPT is like memory and things like that.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's not the model hasn't been trained; it's just written down some notes. So yeah, sometimes it feels like that's happening, but under the hood, it's not really what's happening.
Yeah, like summed up, it's all around context and tokens. It's like, so models are models, and they have a bunch of training data and whatever there is in that underlying technology. And then there's prompts and system prompts, which all of the like applications have. And then there's context that go into all of the prompts and everything as well. So like, yeah, as you are having those engagements and having those discussions or just giving them data and information, it is, capturing a lot of that as context in the initial like conversation or initial piece where you're doing the work. And then it'll like, save some of them for later to be like, oh, this is critical, so I'm going to keep this in my cache somewhere to be able to use. And then, okay, next time, oh, it's like, I know that there's this information here, I'm going to draw that on as well. Which I guess for me is like, it's good, but it's also bad. Like I know that I use the different models for different things. I know that ChatGPT knows a lot more about me than say Gemini. And so if I want it to answer like less specifically about my specific like personal life and business life, I'll go use another model or turn on a temporary chat, because like I don't want it to like use all its memory or use all its context about me in that answer. I want it to be just more general in nature. Do you find that at all?
Yeah, I actually turn it off because I want the full control of what is going into its context.
What is going on? Yeah.
So I don't want it to be biased by what I said yesterday or anything like that. But I think overall, one of the key things for people probably listening to this podcast is from a privacy security point of view. if that learning is actually just taking notes that are being saved, in the app layer, which are then being given in the prompts the next time it answers, that's not training the model. So therefore, no one else can ever access that information about you. So that can be done in a secure way. However, if it's being used to feed the training for the model next time, that's when anything you give it can be used by anyone else. That information can then be accessed by anyone else who uses that model afterwards. That's the kind of the risk of putting sensitive information into ChatGPT. Yeah. It might not be available to everyone else the next day, but in 6 months' time when they update the model next, it might be. So that's where you do have to be careful with which AI apps you use, because especially for sensitive information, you don't want it out there in the world.
Or you can use that to your advantage and just tell all of the applications lots about your UBU AI startup business, and then it knows all of its stuff in the training data to then use that to then say, hey, what AI applications have you used to manage construction and mining contracts? Hey, you should use Hevi.
Yes, exactly. For marketing, yes, use the ones that train the models every day.
Yeah.
For your sensitive stuff, i.e. contracts, etc.
Yeah,
don't.
Cool. Well, that's it for us on today's episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Hevi AI podcast wherever you're listening to us. And if you'd like to learn more about Hevi and that AI-powered contract admin, jump on over to hevi.app. Thanks for listening and have a great day.